hard. We need to rank the study and exploration of life's mysteries as our highest priority. Those who regard money, power, status, reputation, and beauty as their highest priorities cannot unseal their spiritual perception and will remain ignorant and confused forever. It is only by unsealing one's spiritual perception that they can understand the mysteries of life, and only by understanding those mysteries can one transcend to a higher life space. There are 8 mysteries on life, and those whose spiritual perceptions have been unsealed need to explore and seek. A reply to the consultation on soul from Dr. Wang. What is soul and the features of souls? Xiefeng. October 11, 2006. Let me introduce Dr. Wang Runquan of One Clinic of Jiuquan City, Gansu Province. He acquired the nickname of Miracle Working Doctor from his noble medical ethics and strong healing skills. I had the honor of meeting with him in June of last year and witnessed his method of treating patients, which was truly quick and efficient and priced fairly and reasonably. Humility and open-mindedness are commonalities of all wise people, and Dr. Wang is no exception. Both of us were sincerely impressed after our brief conversation, and I entertained a couple phone calls from him, including one yesterday morning concerning the question of souls. I posted my understanding of souls below for him to read when he went online. At the dock we can often hear someone shouting, "Look! The ship is coming." Standing in the station platform we can hear someone saying, "The train is coming." At the airport, we say, "The plane is taking off." The question is, what commonalities do ships, trains, and planes all share? Can any of them come and go by themselves? Certainly not. The reason that they move about is that they have souls, which control them, people. Without people, they would be nothing more than structures of energy in aggregates of matter. A daughter said to her mother, "Look, Daddy is coming home." A passers-by shouted in panic, "Run, a vicious dog is running this way." A young girl cried to her older sister, "My rabbit ran away." We need to ask what trait the dad, the wild animal, and the rabbit share. Why can they move? And why are they no longer able to do so when they die, but their legs, vital organs, and heads are still there? The reason is that they can only move when souls inhabit their bodies. After their souls leave them, they are no longer able to move even though their physical structures are intact. They become the same as those ships, trains, and airplanes without people. So, the physical structures are nothing more than aggregates of materials formed by energy attached to them. They are vessels. The driver of the train gets off and leaves it motionless and dead, but the soul of the train, the driver, is not dead, just as a soul leaves its flesh motionless and dead, but the soul of the flesh does not die. The Western research of near-death and numerous instances of reincarnation tell us loudly and clearly that human souls still exist after their physical deaths, and that they can find other carriers to continue to exercise their missions, just as drivers can replace cars and continue driving. Many people have witnessed the phenomena of soul infusion. Very normal people's voices change suddenly along with their pronunciation and intonation, and they say something very strange but have no idea why. This proves that another soul has expressed itself by borrowing this carrier. Many people have such experiences in which they clearly perceive that other persons are talking to them in their minds, and they can even remember and write down what they tell them. Jane Roberts, Seth, and her receiver, who disseminated New Era information, and Neil, the author of Conversations with God, their behaviors have proved the independent existence of souls, but what exactly are they? The answer is that souls are non-material structures with spirituality and share the following 8 basic characteristics. Souls have spiritual nature and are alive. Souls are non-material, invisible, inaudible, untouchable, and immeasurable in the material world. Souls are weightless. Souls are consciousnesses. Souls function in the material world only when they are attached to specific carriers. Souls have memory. Souls have regional properties. Souls can penetrate and enter any substances from their gaps like beams and waves. Souls are consciousnesses that contain psychic energy but are not the psychic energy themselves. The psychic energy is the source of life and is found everywhere in the universe, whereas souls are just small psychic energy regiments. Not only can souls take people as their carriers, but they can also inhabit other animate and inanimate objects such as houses, vehicles, computers, trees, stones, and so on as their carriers as well. Whether souls go to heaven, hell, or back to earth depends on their contents, namely their consciousnesses. The reincarnation of souls abides strictly to the management and arrangement of Tao. All the reincarnations of souls must pass through the continent for 3 realms lives to pass through. This is a filter with different densities at different layers through which the souls will enter their corresponding spaces. In Life Achanuan, we usually identify consciousnesses instead of souls for easier understanding and refinement. Analysis of spiritual frequency. Spirit is the source of life. Xiefeng. May 24, 2023. We often mention soul, spiritual power, spiritual perception, mind, and spirituality. We also talk about being skillful, having telepathy, spiritual resonance, being spiritually gifted, miraculous remedies, stubborn and unyielding, suffering of living beings. So, what exactly is spirit? Spirit is a vibrational wave, a type of wave that encompasses all conscious activities of living beings. Since it is a wave, it has a frequency, which refers to the number of occurrences per second. An event that happens once per second is called 1 Hz. If the vibrations of a living being occur less than 20 times or more than 20,000 times per second, the human ear cannot perceive the sound of those vibrations. For example, a butterfly's wings vibrate only 5 to 6 times per second, so we cannot hear the sound of a butterfly flying. However, the vibrations of bees, flies, and mosquitoes occur at frequencies of 320, 352, and 640 respectively, which enables us to hear the sound of their flight. The structure of all objects is determined by different vibrational frequencies. The higher the frequency, the more complex the structure. The higher the frequency, the more intangible it becomes. Perfect art, such as the beauty of the human body, is also a manifestation of vibrational frequencies. The higher the vibrational frequency during pregnancy, the more beautiful the physical appearance of the children. We can observe that different frequencies lead to different material forms, and the frequency of spirit leads to different conscious forms of life. Therefore, the acceptance of specific spiritual frequencies is closely related to the formation of our own life structure. So, which spiritual frequencies should we accept, and which should we reject? Since spirit is a type of vibrational wave, it must have a frequency. When I was in my homeland, the 1,000-year world, the frequencies we received there were all a kind of sound from nature. Of course, that sound is different in nature from the sounds of nature on earth. That sound, or rather frequency, is the frequency of the greatest creator, which is the spirit of the greatest creator. Since spirit is a vibrational wave, the greatest creator's vibrational waves permeate all space and time in the universe. Therefore, we can confidently say that all things have spirit. Not only do plants and animals have spirit, but mountains, rivers, stones, and houses also have spirit. Therefore, we have discovered that everything has a spirit. In our daily lives, we not only receive the spirits from God, but also receive a multitude of spirits from plants, animals, mountains, rivers, and supernatural beings. Unfortunately, in most cases, what people receive is not the spirit from God, but rather the spirits of human beings themselves and a large number of the wronged and aggrieved, and even the spirits of arrogant beings from higher realms. These spirits have a significant destructive impact on the structure of our lives. Unless we distance ourselves from these spirits and return to the embrace of nature. The sounds in nature are not specifically referring to the sounds of wind, rain, bird chirping, frog croaking, thunder, or ocean waves. Instead, they refer to sounds with frequencies lower than 20 Hz, such as the sounds of plant growth, blooming, heartbeat, and the movement of white clouds. We know that infrasound is harmful to the human body. When the frequency of external object vibrations resonates with the frequency of our body vibrations, it can damage our internal organs and even the nervous system. However, it is evident that the sounds of plant growth and blooming, which are infrasound, not only do not harm our health but actually contribute to our well-being. This is a very subtle phenomenon. Some infrasounds are harmful, even fatal, to our health, while others are highly beneficial. I have also discovered a phenomenon where infrasound at 1 Hz actually resonates with the human heart's rhythm, yet it has no harmful effects on the body. This is difficult for me to explain, and perhaps scientists in the relevant field can provide a clear explanation. Now, here comes the central mystery. The frequency of the greatest creator's spirit happens to be 1 Hz, and only waves at this frequency can penetrate all dimensions of the universe. The optimal frequency for the human heart's rhythm is also 1 Hz, or 60 beats per minute. This should create a resonance, but this resonance phenomenon does not cause harm to the human body. This is a mystery that I find difficult to unravel. However, we can draw inspiration from the ticking sound of an alarm clock in a bedroom. The frequency of the alarm clock aligns with the rhythm of the heart, and it does not cause any resonance that harms the body. Therefore, the frequency of greatest creator's spirit does not harm the human body due to resonance with the frequency of the heart. Now, let's analyze which frequencies are beneficial or harmful to human life. Scientists have discovered that for plants, sound at a frequency of 6,000 Hz is most favorable for their growth. Sound frequencies between 700 and 900 Hz can hinder plant growth, and frequencies above 10,000 Hz can lead to the complete death of plants. Scientists have conducted experiments and found that the frequencies ranging between 2,000 and 4,000 Hz produce the most unbearable sounds. However, our judgment is not based on frequencies alone, but rather on our own subjective perception. The sound of dragging an iron shovel on concrete is undeniably unpleasant. Sudden screams, car horns, arguments, noise, crying, complaints, grievances, hoarse shouting, painful moans, desperate cries, and various other sounds also cause discomfort to individuals. In the end, we can roughly establish a clue: any sound that brings happiness, excitement, joy, serenity, tranquility, contentment, comfort, pleasure, freedom, and blessedness is beneficial to mental and physical health. On the other hand, sounds that cause discomfort, irritability, anxiety, fear, depression, melancholia, restlessness, and pain are detrimental to our well-being. The conclusion is that the frequency of spirits is 1 Hz, and the waves of spirits permeate all time and space in the universe. This leads to the belief that everything has a spirit, and all the spirits of life and objects come from the spirit of the greatest creator. Once this spirit disappears, life ceases to exist. The strength of the spirit is related to the sounds a life form hears. More joyful sounds result in stronger spirits, while more disturbing sounds weaken the spirit. The spirit is the source of life, and humans themselves are without spirits. The human spirit comes from the greatest creator, and the vitality of the human spirit comes from consciousness. Pure and orderly consciousness makes a person spirited, with spiritual energy, perception, and spirituality. They become agile, flexible, resourceful, and talented. On the other hand, if consciousness is chaotic and disordered, a person becomes sluggish, dull, unresponsive, clumsy, lacking perception, and lacking understanding. All spirits of life come from the greatest creator, so what about the so-called evil spirits? This question will be explored in a separate analysis. In conclusion, spirits are the source of all things and the source of life, with a frequency of 1 Hz. Analysis of the 3 treasures of life: affection, love, and sex. Xiefeng. October 26, 2023. Affection, love, and sex are the 3 treasures of life. All living beings, from plants, insects, animals to humans, as long as they are alive, possess these 3 treasures. All plants, whether trees, flowers, or grass, possess affection. When they are cared for, they thrive, their flowers are vibrant, and their fruits are fragrant, sweet, and large. If they are harmed, they wither, weaken, and die. Plants also experience fear and anxiety. Even a single flower, when nurtured by a loving person, flourishes, while the same flower, when nurtured by someone with hate, cannot thrive no matter how it is cared for. The shade provided by plants, their offerings, and their colors, all express their love. Plants engage in pollination, which constitutes their sexuality and sexual activity. Most of the plants that do not flower, or bear fruit also have male and female distinctions, even trees like poplars, willows, and grasses have male and female distinctions. There is an exchange of elements between the male and female parts, which is their sexuality and sexual activity. All things have affection, referring to life. The connotation of affection determines the level of a life. The narrower the emotional domain, the lower the level of life, the broader the emotional domain, the higher the level of life. For example, if a person only has affection for one or a few people, their emotional domain is narrow, and their life level is low. If a person has affection for all people, their emotional domain is vast, and their life level is high. If a person not only has affection for people but also for all beings, for mountains, rivers, land, sun, moon, and stars, then that person is no longer an ordinary mortal but has reached the level of gods and belongs to the realm of heaven. Love is a sign of the non-material structure of life. If a person only loves a few people throughout their life, the non-material structure of their life is not much different from that of animals and may even be less extensive than that of animals. If a person loves all sentient beings, then that person is not an ordinary mortal but has reached the level of angels and bodhisattvas. The more objects of love and the broader the scope of love, the more perfect the non-material structure of a life. Love is a state manifested by life, and this state does not change in the slightest due to different environments or objects. As the saying goes, the orchid grows in a secluded valley, not needing people to appreciate its beauty. If someone falls in love with another person because of their wealth or power, this love is not born from life itself but is driven by self-interest. Therefore, love that is spoken is not true love, love is manifested, not spoken. Sexuality is a characteristic of the structural composition of life. Every species has its unique sexual characteristics, but all life forms share a common feature, the exchange of energy with the opposite sex. Only the opposite sex can satisfy one's sexual desires. When a life receives sufficient energy from the opposite sex, it can manifest relatively perfect characteristics. If sexuality is suppressed and sexual desires remain unfulfilled, the individual will be in a pathological state, exhibiting emotions such as anxiety, restlessness, irritability, and even violence. They will vent these emotions through behaviors like anger, jealousy, resentment, and brutality. Their psyche will become imbalanced, leading to internal conflicts and a decline in the capacity for love, eventually drifting towards the lower realms of life. If a life loses affection, love, and sex, it is no different from a stone, it loses vitality and life. If a person lacks affection, love, and sex, they become like a mummy, a walking corpse, nothing more than a physical automaton. Therefore, affection, love, and sex are the three treasures of life. People may possess nothing, but they cannot lack affection, love, and sex. The broader the emotional domain, love domain, and sex domain, the higher the level of life, the narrower the domain, the lower the level. Why did Jesus Christ say, "In heaven, there is neither marrying nor giving in marriage"? It is because once there is marriage, the emotional, love, and sex domains become narrow, making it unsuitable for life to exist in heaven. To become an advanced life form, one must fill their heart with love for mountains and rivers, love for the universe, and love for the destinations they are destined to reach. Regardless of the environment or circumstances, one must consistently express their love, beauty. They must fully satisfy their sexual needs because sexual freedom is the ultimate freedom of life. Classification and application of spirit. Xiefeng. May 28, 2023. Spirit has only one source, which is the vibration wave caused by the heartbeat of the greatest creator's heart. This wave, with a frequency of 1 Hz, can penetrate through the entire universe and is responsible for the movement and changes in the material world, as well as the survival of all life. Therefore, there is no classification of spirit. The heartbeat of all living beings is driven by the vibration wave of the greatest Creator's Spirit. The greatest Creator's Spirit is not only the primary driving force of the universe but also its eternal driving force. The mysterious and unfathomable superstring recognized by scientists is the spirit of the greatest Creator. So, where do the so-called evil spirits, manifestations of bodhisattvas, and spirit possession come from? And what about terms like spirituality, spiritual power, spiritual perception, and spiritual phenomena? Let's consider a scenario where we place a sponge, a towel, a wooden block, and an iron block in the open and let them be sprinkled with a drizzle. In the end, we observe that the sponge absorbs the most water, followed by the towel, while the iron block absorbs the least. Despite receiving a similar amount of water on the same surface area from the drizzle, why does the sponge absorb the most water and the iron block the least? We find that the sponge absorbs more water because it has more hollow spaces in its structure, whereas the structure of the iron block is dense with fewer hollow spaces. The hollower an object is, the easier it is to absorb more water, whereas denser objects have a harder time absorbing more water. The greatest Creator's Spirit is like that drizzle, evenly distributed in any time and space of the universe. Or we can say that the vibration waves of the greatest Creator's Spirit propel all material movements and heartbeats without any loss. The variation in spiritual qualities such as high spirituality, strong spiritual power, and acute spiritual perception among different living beings is related to their life structure. It is like how the structure of a sponge, towel, wooden block, or iron block determines their ability to absorb water. From this, we notice a phenomenon: the emptier something is, the more it can accommodate. Conversely, the more solid something is, the less it can accommodate. This phenomenon enlightens us that the emptier a person's heart is, the more it can resonate with the vibration of the greatest Creator's Spirit. On the other hand, a solid heart has a harder time resonating with the greatest Creator's Spirit. In other words, the level of a person's spirituality, the strength of their spiritual power, and the sensitivity of their spiritual perception all depend on the state of their heart, whether it is empty or solid. The emptier the heart, the more it can resonate with the greatest Creator's Spirit at the same frequency, while the more solid it is, the more challenging it becomes to resonate with the greatest Creator's Spirit. Based on this deduction, we can draw a conclusion: the emptier the heart, the higher the person's spirituality, the stronger their spiritual power, and the sharper their spiritual perception. Conversely, the more solid the heart, the lower the person's spirituality, the weaker their spiritual power, and the duller their spiritual perception. Once we understand this conclusion, I invite you to read the Heart Sutra, and all mysteries will become clear, with the sky cleared of any obstructions. Here is the full text of the Heart Sutra. When Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, Lord who looks down with compassion, attained enlightenment through his profound wisdom, he realized that all forms, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and cognitions are only illusions. With this realization, he moved beyond all suffering and difficulty. Sariputra. Therefore, the tangible comes from the invisible which contains it. There are no essential differences between the two, and the same applies for feelings, thoughts, behavior, and cognition. No matter which of the above, none of their natures have birth or death, being or non-being, defilement or purity, or increasing or decreasing. Therefore, the nature of the world and of life is invisible, neither any individuals, nor any of their sensations listed above really exist. Thinking, and our physical perceptions of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling mislead us into our illusions and apply questions to our cognitions about good versus evil, ego versus non-ego, wise versus unwise, life versus death, and attainment versus non-attainment of supreme dharma. All of these perceptions are only illusions. The Bodhisattva relied on the wisdom that could bring him to the shores of freedom. He was entirely free from worry and thus overcame all fears and all that upset him, leaving behind this distorted, illusory world, and ultimately attaining nirvana. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future have and will continue to rely on that same wisdom to bring them to the shores of freedom, to attain supreme authentic wisdom ultimately. Therefore, know that wisdom that can bring us to the shore of freedom is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequaled mantra. It can remove all suffering, it is genuine and not false. It reads, go, go, go. Go to the other shore with transcending wisdom, go to the realm of freedom, go to attain enlightenment soon, just go. When the mind is without obstructions, there is no fear. When the mind is free from worry, there is no fear, one can distance oneself from delusional dreams, attain ultimate nirvana, become a celestial being or a Buddha, and journey to the Elysium world to obtain eternal life. Is there any basis for this? Yes, when the mind is free from worry, it is empty. When the mind is empty, it can resonate 100% with the greatest Creator's Spirit. When it resonates with the greatest Creator's Spirit, one can be in harmony with the greatest Creator. Since the greatest Creator is eternal, one attains eternal life. So, what about evil spirits? Evil spirits are vibrations that oppose the spirit of the greatest Creator. Once an individual confronts the vibration wave of the greatest Creator's Spirit, they themselves become an evil spirit. Specifically speaking, evil spirits are everywhere, filling the void. The manifestations of bodhisattvas are revelations given by the heavens to people. These manifestations occur almost every day, such as sandstorms, super typhoons, hailstorms, floods, droughts, and snowfall in June. All these phenomena are manifestations of bodhisattvas. Spirit possession refers to departed souls who, due to resentment or regrets, cannot transcend into the afterlife and remain in the space between yin and yang. They borrow the bodies of living individuals to express their desires. Another situation is when the influential thoughts of ancestors control and influence the thinking of present-day individuals. These individuals lack their own thoughts and solely rely on the thoughts of their predecessors to contemplate and judge present viewpoints and phenomena. In summary, when individuals lack their own thoughts and will, only reiterating and expressing the thoughts and will of others, they are experiencing spirit possession. In this sense, the majority of humanity is beings possessed by spirits. The utilization of the greatest Creator's Spirit is straightforward. As long as we empty our hearts and remove all obstructions, resonating at the same frequency with the greatest Creator's Spirit is the best method and approach. Clear the passage of life. Xiefeng. August 14, 2017. By the existence of things, we profit. And by the non-existence of things, we are served. For something to be useful, it must be empty. Water can only flow freely through pipelines that are empty. If they are not empty, its flow will be restricted. The most obvious example is how drains in kitchens and washrooms become blocked when garbage clogs the pipes. A pipe clogged by garbage is useless. The only way to solve that problem is to remove the garbage, otherwise, it becomes useless. Life is like a passage which must be kept clear. Once extra clutter enters it, life will become weak and powerless, will be rigid and corrupted and even useless. When I study life and contrast a life that is bound for heaven with the one that is going to hell, I find that the passage of heaven-bound lives is clear, whereas the ones of hell-bound lives are filled with extra clutter and are badly blocked. What exactly blocks the passage of life? Above all, we must learn what life is. Life is a non-material structure with spirituality, which shows its character mainly through the consciousness, also called the soul. Actually, life, soul, and consciousness are the same thing. In order to talk about it more conveniently and clearly, I substitute consciousness for life, and when I speak of consciousness, I really mean life. Life's passage is blocked right by clutter in the consciousness. Let us examine the types of things that clutter our consciousness. Joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, grief, fear, and fright do it. Property, money, reputation, status, and power do it. Tao, virtue, benevolence, righteousness, courtesy, and faith do it. Relatives, families, nationalities, groups, political parties, religions, and nations do it. Faith, ideals, successes, proposals, and targets do it. All of our knowledge, education, and experience does it. All the views which have been formed about life, values, life, and the universe do it. Ideas from traditions and religions do it. Everything listed above are obstacles that block the passage of life. Now let us look at the teachings of Laozi, Sakyamuni, and Jesus. The core of Laozi's teachings is nothingness, returning to being a baby. Sakyamuni's teachings focus on being empty. One's mind should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or dharma. Your mind should not abide in anything. The core of Jesus's teachings is, you should be converted, and become one as little child. The teachings of Celestial, Buddha, and God focus on one point, that is clearing the passage of life. Why should we clean life to keep it flowing smoothly? The answer is obvious. When a water pipe is blocked, it is useless. When a bedroom is stuffed, no one can occupy it. When the passage of life is blocked, life will lack of nimbus and will slip down toward hell, so it is necessary to clear the passage of life. With respect to real life, the more possessions that one owns, the more trouble, worries, fright, and the less freedom, elegance, and flexibility they have. The more that clutters their consciousness, the more rigid, possessive, stubborn, and conservative they become, the more they dare not to take one step beyond the limit. A life like this actually becomes more miserable, tiring, and tragical. Einstein once said that what prevented him from thinking was the education he had received. I can tell you that what prevents one from achieving happiness, joy, freedom, and blessing comes from what they have possessed in their consciousness. And what prevents mankind from achieving peace, happiness, and sustained prosperity is exact what they hold fast to. I understand fully the broad way to heaven and how a person achieves a happy life, and I know clearly how mankind can avoid man-made and natural disasters and how to realize a sustainable development, but more importantly, I know how a life can arrive in heaven. However, few believe my words because people's passages of life are too cluttered. Accordingly, if one wants a better life and wants to arrive in heaven, they must clear their own life passage first. Dream World and the Space of Life. Xiefeng. August 15, 2017. Suppose that you could either sleep and have a wonderful but illusory dream for 80 years, or that you could study, work, and struggle in reality for the same 80 years. Which would you rather do, enjoy the unreal dream or struggle through reality? It is the same 80 years, what is the difference between the real and the unreal one? Are both not experiences of life? To life, there is no real or unreal problem. Where were you when you were dreaming? Is everything in a dream not our reality? Is the feeling in the dream not real? Are the feeling and experience of annoyance, worry, joy, and fear not the same as they are in our reality? Actually, life is also a dream, however our thoughts corner us stubbornly in a supposed reality and we ignore the other space of life. Human lives die, but life does not. Life will continue to live on in a dream without a body. The point is, which dreams shall we dream, pleasant ones or nightmares? The space of life is infinite, and the time of life is also infinite. Everyone dreams. What happens in those dreams? It may be unthinkable and unimaginable, but you can reunite with dead loved ones, allow yourself to fly, miraculously transform into things and situations that you long for, and you may even make love in your dreams, and the feelings of making love in dreams are more intense, comfortable, unforgettable, and impressive than of those in reality. What is unimaginable in reality can be realized in dreams. You can even attain magic powers and spells. Why not live a wonderful dream? What matters is how we can make long-term wonderful dreams. Associated with our consciousness Dream world and the space of life.